As Marie Antoinette once said, let them trade. And so we shall. Welcome to Let Them Trade. This is one of those games that I actually wanted to cover a few months ago and time just kind of got away from me, but it's a good game and it deserves a bit of attention. At the end of the day, it's a relaxed resource management game. Very zen, kind of gives some Settlers of Catan vibes, which is nice. Overall, it's pretty easy to get into. Maybe a little bit too easy, but we'll explain more about that in a bit. But honestly, the best thing I can do is probably just jump straight into a new game and show you how this works. So that's what we're gonna do. We'll pick our map. How about the Twin River Valley? Seems fun. We're gonna have a fertile valley split by two big rivers. And then for advanced settings, you can increase the difficulty of the game, but what it really does is affects bandits. They are a threat on these maps, they can be a hindrance, but to be honest, they're more of an annoyance than anything else, and none of the rest of the game scales in difficulty, so you really don't have to do this, you don't have to play on hard to prove anything. It's not the reason you play the game. If that doesn't make sense, don't worry, you'll understand in a bit. Let's go ahead and get started. Welcome to the world, divided up into these beautiful little wooden hexes over here with various different resources on them. We've got our fertile fields, we've got clay, mountains, forests, stone, fish, all the things we need to make a new civilization thrive. First thing I'm going to do is start placing down some cities. I'll go down to these basics and place down some city centers. There's a limit to how many of these you can place down, but with some technology, you'll be able to get more later on. I'm going to try placing the city like, let's say, right around down over here. I think that'll be fine. Then we'll connect that up by road to our castle keep so that goods are able to flow. I also know that I'm going to want to have a city next to some of these trees so I can get some forestry up and running. So let's do the same thing and just set these up like so. Perfect. So these are going to get built up reasonably quickly, and I'll go ahead and increase the game speed so it's a little faster. Once this is set up, what we can do is go down to our peasants area here, and we have access to some buildings. So I need to start farming up some potatoes. Potatoes are a very important food source that's going to fuel a lot of the rest of our economy. To have one of these farms up, we need to have two peasants working the field. Every one of their houses gives them two peasants. So, understandably, what you want to do is just place down one farm and one house, and boom, you've got everything you need set up. Every one of these is going to require some resources, in this case, some lumber. So the resources have to get distributed from the city center to the tile, and then they're set, and then they're working. If they don't have the resources, that's fine. They can buy them from other towns, but that's where you have to have the roads and everything connected. So up over here in Wheatlow, they're going to need to have some food to sustain their population, right? But we also know that we need to place down some lumberjacks to get some wood. That's how we're going to be able to have construction in other towns. So by doing this, this town is going to start producing wood and buying potatoes from Greenspur, and likewise, Greenspur is going to produce potatoes and buy wood from Wheatlow. And that's how they're going to work. Now, they each have their own coffers, and you can see already that trade is flowing between them. We exact a 25% tariff on all trade. So the more trade that occurs, the wealthier that I'm going to become. The next thing maybe I want to do is start working on getting some fish. That would be useful because each of our peasants have some basic needs and some luxury needs. Luxury needs getting met means I get to exact even more money from them, or rather, the cities do. But the more money the cities have, the more they can trade, the more money I get, so it all works out nicely. But to gain access to things like fish, I need to do some research. This is an important part of the progression system of the game. We start with these three things unlocked, plus a sawmill. If I want to get a fishery, fine, we can do that, but we're going to need resources. If you want to do this, what's going to happen is our castle keep is going to buy resources from these towns, and that comes out of my coffers, shown up here in the top left. Now, at the moment, we're making no progress. That's because we can't expand the castle keep in some way. So, for example, let's try placing down a research center right over here. That's going to be how we end up buying materials and getting them dropped off. We already started out with a few planks, so we can get this built up no problem. I'm also going to want to have a provisioner, because this is how I'm going to be able to explore the map and find more resources. Again, you'll see that in a little bit. Now over here, every one of your cities has a limited number of tiles that they can place down. So you have to be kind of picky and choosy about what specializations your towns are going to have. You don't want them to exactly be autonomous. If they are, then what incentive do they have to buy from other cities? And then I don't make any money. It is far better to have your cities specialized in one or two particular goods. But make sure that they're valuable goods, otherwise your cities will go bankrupt, and that's not going to suit your purposes at all. Let's go ahead and place down another potato farm and another one of these peasant homes over here. I'm taking up the sandy areas because I can't place down any farms farms on those, so I feel like I might as well. Over here, we'll go ahead and place down another lumberjack, and we'll place down another one of the peasant homes as well. So we're just doubling up on our production, but that's good. Now, the more supply there is of goods, generally speaking, the prices go down. That can be good if you want to have a lot of materials to do research or construct your own stuff, but it also means less profit potential in these towns. So you kind of have to micromanage that a little bit. Now, over here in Wheatlow, I know I'm going to want to have some planks. I could place the planks down here in Greenspur. They'll buy the wood, then they'll sell the planks, and that's a way you can do things. Or I can just bypass that middleman entirely and say, let's just do this. So we'll place down a sawmill over here. That also needs workers. Do this. Wheatlow officially is now going to be at its 7 out of 7 cap. So this is going to be specialized in all the wood and all the planks I need to grow. Now we can get fish, so let's go back to basics, and we're going to place down another city center. This time I'll place it way up over in this direction, probably. There might be some other resources I can't see over here. I'll take that risk. Let's place that here and then get ourselves another road. Roads are super duper important. The more efficient the roads are, the more direct they are in their placement, the faster goods transfer. The faster goods transfer, the healthier your cities are going to be and the more money that you are going to make. Now over here, I know I want to get myself some fish. So let's place that down here, plus some more peasants, and you can kind of see how this is going to work. Now this city will need to buy wood and they'll need to buy potatoes, but since they're the only producer of fish and everyone wants it, there should be a pretty good amount of trade going back and forth. In fact, we'll go ahead and double up on this now and just place even more fisheries. Boom. And then with all this, let's go back to our research and unlock another industry. I want to get myself a sheep farm. That way I can start producing wool, the other luxury good that we know we're going to need. And that shouldn't take too long for us to buy. If you go to the castle, what you can do is directly buy resources immediately from towns, as long as they have the supply. But if you're willing to wait, your keep will try to negotiate a proper market price, and it's a cheaper way to do research, so I typically don't do that. Anyway, let's go ahead and work on wool. I want to place down one more city center. This time I'm going to place it around these mountains over here. That was intentional. So we'll place that, and then I'll go ahead and queue up, let's say, 2 sheep farms right along over here, plus we'll get ourselves a couple of peasants over in this direction. Boom, easy enough. And of course, connect everything by road. There we go. This is now all set. We are producing all of the basic resources that we are going to need. The other thing I'll do is research the quarry, just because I'll need stone in order to progress anywhere past this tier of research, so I might as well have it. Now we need to start looking for resources, because I'm getting a little bit on the cramped side. Now, you do have a knight in your retinue at your keep. This guy is primarily going to be warding off bandits, but also doing some exploration. So what I'll do with him is say, go explore in this direction over here, and Sir Eldrick is going to run across over here and start exploring any of the nearby tiles, revealing any new resources. Now, you'll see he has a number right here. This represents how many provisions he has in order to actually do any exploration. Provisions are generated here in the castle, and this is where you're going to be buying a whole load of potatoes in order to make provisions so you can keep scouting. So having really good potato production is great because it means you keep the supply high, therefore the market price low, therefore exploration becomes kind of easy. What I'm looking for are additional stone sources. I do see one right over here, but I don't know. I don't really want to turn Greenspur into a potato and stone area. I certainly could, though. I suppose it really wouldn't be the end of the world if I did do that. Okay, I think I've convinced myself. Let's go ahead and place down a peasant home right here and a quarry. Boom. So this city is now going to specialize in 2 resources. Potatoes for the bulk of what we need, and then occasionally it can sell some stone. But notice to make this work, it's spending out of its coffers buying all of the lumber and the planks it's going to need from Wheatlow, which means Wheatlow gets a little bit richer. And now we just sit back for a little bit and generate some money. I'm watching the coffers for all these cities, and you can immediately see which ones are starting to get rich when which ones are struggling. Surprisingly, the wool is having a little bit of trouble. Now, what you can do is spend money out of your coffers, donate it to the city, and that keeps them afloat. Sometimes you're going to have to do that in order to just sustain them long enough so they can find their footing. Other times, you might go to successful cities like this one and say, give me your money! Now, if you do this, you reduce the happiness of all of the citizens within, at least temporarily, and that can be an issue, but to be honest, it's never been enough of an issue that it's prevented me from just siphoning funds. This is how I keep doing research, this is how I keep growing, why wouldn't I? Now, Greenspur, I really wish was producing a little bit more in the way of potatoes. There is something we can do to try and speed this up and get myself additional city buildings, and that is to expand the city. This takes wood, planks, and stone, which is why it's so important I do have stone production. So with this, not only are you going to get 2 additional tiles you can place down, but you also get extra city transporters and city traders. What that means is in between the tiles of the city, you see these little carts running around. Those are transporters. More of those just means more goods flow within the city. And then, of course, traders are the ones that travel to and from the cities. The more traders you have, the faster they can buy goods, which is great. And now we can see, by the way, things are starting to even out nicely. The wool is getting bought en masse by all the people who want to make their peasants happy, and now they're making some cash. So this is a very, very reliable, simple economy we have going right now, but it's sustainable, and I'm making money. We're happy about that. Potato supplies are a little bit low, though, because I've done so much exploration. Let's try to upgrade Greenspur. This costs me some money, and then the city has to spend all their coffers buying these materials, except for the ones they already produce locally. So you can see here, they just bought a whole bunch of planks. They're going to send more traders out to grab some wood. They'll just keep doing this until they're done. And then I can set myself up another little potato farm like so, and maybe some additional peasants. Upgrading your towns is really not a bad idea. More trade just means more funds. Good timing on this, too. I'm already out of potatoes out there in the world, so this is going to help. Now you might be wondering, with the sheep farm, why were you so insistent you want to place it next to this mountain? Well, that's because every one of these tiles can be modified in some way, usually with technology that'll unlock them, but with the sheep we can do this right away here. We could click on this, mountain goats, 15% extra output if it's adjacent to a mountain tile. So if I want to do this, we can click on this. It's free, it doesn't cost me anything, but now I'm just going to produce more wool and put that into the market. Now, that might be a problem if you are oversaturating the market and the price crashes, but for right now, I feel comfortable with this. Now, what other things could I do with some technology down over here? Well, you could find ways of improving some of your buildings. So for example, I'm still not producing enough potatoes for my tastes. If I want to spend the money, in this case it's going to cost me about 165 gold, I could buy all these materials, and then we'll be able to invest in upgrading these potato farms exactly the same as we invested in upgrading this town. This is now done, so let's go ahead and upgrade these potato patches and make sure we're producing plenty. Now, one thing I know just happened here is that some bandits are starting to attack my traders. Now, these guys are hidden from us for most of the game unless we really hunt them down. But Oakendale just raised a bounty on someone, so someone stole from him and he's angry. We can solve this. If we go to research, we can build ourselves a light barracks. We'll research this, costs us some stone. But with that, we can train up a retinue and attach them to our knight, which makes him a fighting force. Case in point, go ahead and place down the light barracks, like so. And now this is going to start taking up some resources and training up these little light retinues. If I click on the knight, we can see that he has a capacity for 6. Once he has all of these, he at least has some decent combat strength we can use to fight the bandits. There's some right over there, as a matter of fact. Now, I'm not quite strong enough to deal with this right now, so he's going to steal some of my goods, and yep, sure enough, there's a bounty on them, and then they disappear. So we're going to have to go and wander the map with our knight, trying to find their camp, and then take them down. In the meantime, let's go back to our research and look for other things that we could do. Could start working on wheat. That's good, but only if you're then going to take that wheat and turn it into either beer or mill it into bread. We need all of that. To make that work, we need to move to Tier 2 technology. That requires workers, which are another tier of peasantry. They're not upgrades of the peasants, they're just a totally different class, and therefore they have totally different demands. They're also a lot more expensive. What I'll do for now is instead focus on a couple other things. Let's get some technology for urban development. This increases my city limit by 3, so I'll be able to start extracting more resources elsewhere and specialize further. We could also try to get trader speed upgrades, logistic upgrades, and so on. And this means that trade just flows even faster, which means more goods, more money for me. It's all about infrastructure investments. That's what we care about. This will cost me a bit of cash, but to be honest, it's so easy just to keep siphoning off of the successful cities. Like, who really cares? You can only do that once every 5 minutes, but like, that's not that big of a deal. And this is one of those things where I feel like there's a slight imbalance here. You're supposed to do this very sparingly. I don't see much incentive to do it very sparingly because the happiness has really not been that big of an issue for me. By the way, this is looking like a tempting spot for a city here. There's some stone, some coal, and some clay nearby. I could do a few things with this. Oh, and we also discovered some iron. Oh, that changes things. Now this becomes a mineral wealth city. Maybe I need to find some way to make use of the clay and do something else with it. Maybe. We'll see. Hello, we just found some more of these bandits. Let's go ahead and say we want to guard this area. Send the knight up over here. He is going to engage in combat and try to prevent them from stealing resources. And it so happens the camp is right next to the road. So now that we've revealed it with a knight, we can get into combat. If I click on this, we'll be able to see what's happening here. So basically, you are going to roll a dice and then add a numerical value onto that dice roll, and whoever wins gets to kill the other person. If you have high quality troops, you get to add on extra modifiers. So you could totally lose a fight here. In this case, we just lost a fair bit of our retinue. But there's also usually not as many bandits, so it's not that huge of a deal. Let's go home, pick up some new retinue. Now that I know where this camp is, we'll be able to clear them out. Get over here, do the exact same fight, and we'll win this. That's it when it comes to dealing with all of these bandits. And that's the difficulty of the game, the only real threat. Higher difficulties just make the bandits have more health and stuff, and they just ramp up faster. That is annoying, but like, is that really that big of a deal? Anyway, let's go back to research here. Anything else I feel like I need to be more efficient with? Not really. So let's go ahead and start learning about workers. Holy crap, we found some gold down here as well. This area really has literally every mineral I could possibly want. That's actually too much. I don't want to specialize a city in having 4 different resources. You usually only want to produce like 2 or 3 key things. But either way, workers are now an option for us. But even if I place down workers right now, what are we going to do with them? And the answer is absolutely nothing. So let's start researching some new industries we can make use of. For example, clay. And the research is going pretty fast right now because I have a lot of surplus resources sitting around. Sometimes, though, you're going to use up all your resources between cities, and they don't really have a lot to spare for you at the castle keep, and your research gets pretty slow as a result. I'm just going to let my economy continue progressing for a little bit. I'm not rushing into the next phase of the game here. Once I start placing down workers, that's a whole new set of goods I have to worry about. So I'd rather get all my research done first. At this point, I think I have enough information to roughly know what I want to do. I'm going to set up a new city center over here to take advantage of things like the clay. But we don't need to place down peasants here because if we click on peasants, you can see there's no clay option here. This is where we need to have the workers. Same exact concept, though. Go ahead and place a couple of those down, get those clay pits a-rolling. And in the meantime, these are going to have different needs for them. We can see those in a bit, but I'll go ahead and start prepping. Let's place down a worker home over in Oakendale so we can start placing down some tailoring facilities using the wool I'm already producing. And over in Wheatlow, we'll place down a worker and get some stone tools being produced as well. That's going to require the logs we already have, and yes, they'll have to buy the stone from nearby Greenspur, but that should be okay. Now, if you build too much at once, you're going to find that the flow of goods ends up being a little bit restricted, and that can cause some issues. Right now, we're looking okay, though. Case in point, we had too many workers and stuff going around. That's not going to be enough planks. So we've completely exhausted that already. Heck, we're even running low on wood from so much consumption. Not really a surprise, just something you've got to be ready for. If you go to the castle keep, one thing you could do is start stockpiling a bunch of resources and then just try to sell them off. It's a good way of trying to, like, control the supply and demand of the game a little bit. Maybe manipulate those market prices a tiny bit, I don't know. Anyway, Frosthaven over here is going to struggle a little bit. They're going to be consuming coal and fish to meet the basic needs of their workers, and they'll be buying things like clothes, but who's going to do anything with the clay? And the answer is kind of nobody, which is why this is one of those towns I'm probably going to have to prop up with my own money. Does this mean we're redistributing the wealth? Absolutely it does. Live with it. One thing we could do that might help a little bit is to try to get ourselves some charcoal production so they're producing something else that's useful over here. But then I'm going to be taking up a lot of, like, my brick making stuff, and like, I don't know. Might be better to set up another city and start extracting some coal properly. So that's what I'll do. Let's place that over, right over here, I guess. That will also take some workers, unfortunately. And we don't actually have coal mining available right now. We only have charcoal burning. So if I want to get coal mining, we should probably go ahead and research that now that I have stone tools. I could burn some charcoal. There's really nothing stopping me from doing that if I wanted to place down, let's say, some peasants over here, and then we could get myself, let's say, a charcoal burner over here. We need to get myself some more workers and chop down the nearby forest, but there we go. This suddenly could become a coal town, which I know I'm going to need eventually, so sure, why not? Now, something that I know ends up being a massive moneymaker at some point is going to end up being bread. For whatever reason, every time I played this, the bread-making cities end up being some of my richest by a long shot. So we'll get that set up in just a little bit now that I've got coal going. I just want to get the bricks going first. And our workers, for their part, are starting to look a little bit happier as some resources get distributed to them. As long as they are happy and they're producing enough taxes, even though Frosthaven isn't selling a lot to other cities, they'll be kind of sustained, at least a little bit, just from local tax income. There's my brick making. Thank you. So with that taken care of, let's go ahead and work on the mill and then the bakery. And of course, go around and collect my every 5-minute tithes from all the rich people. And actually, I just realized I can't actually do anything with the mill and the bakery yet, because it requires wheat in order to set that up. So, Yeah, that's not actually an option. So let's go ahead and start up a new city down over this way. Now, at some point, these bandits are going to become more and more of a threat for us. What you can do then at that point is try to work up toward a medium barracks, which we already have all the materials for. I just need to get my iron mine technology up and running first. Probably should do that, because if we don't, they will ramp eventually. We're also going to need even more cities, so the expansion tech will be useful. Plus, hey, never hurts to have faster traders. Anyway, down over here, let's get ourselves some workers and a mill. Now, let's think about how we're going to get some iron production up and running. Could do that over here. We also have some coal and iron up over here. Let's just go ahead and play with this area. Seems fine. Mine the coal, mine the iron, easy. Now, it is worth noting that for pretty much every tile, as you start getting technology, we're going to be able to start getting more upgrades, kind of like we did with the sheep earlier. So this peasant home, for example, we could increase the amount of potato consumption to reduce the wood consumption, and so on. Or we could swap out a peasant slot for one worker slot. We could upgrade our lumberjacks, etc. Some of these are fine in that they are either just straight out improvements. Maybe they want to be like next to the same type of resource, so like these potatoes here. Extra production for every similar potato farm. You can do that. Others are going to increase consumption of certain resources. So if you're overproducing in something and underproducing in another area, it might be worth building out something that's going to help boost that up. Don't be afraid to play with it if necessary. Truth be told, though, most of the time I don't feel like I need it. If I just keep building up more and more efficiency upgrades, usually that's enough to keep things going. Now, at this point, I've unlocked everything here at Tier 2. There is more we can do, though. If we go to Citizenry, we can see even more advanced resources. So the Citizen requires a whole bunch of new stuff. We got pottery, carpentry, we can get forges for hammers, which are kind of like your stone tools, used for every upgrade. The Armory, if you want to have the best possible soldiers, goldsmiths, lamp makers, blah blah blah. Lots of stuff. By the way, the bandits have definitely gotten stronger, so it is time to get myself an upgraded barracks. We'll get even better retinues. And even if you lose against the bandits, try to pay attention to where they go, because that might give you a clue to where their bandit hideout is. There they are. Found them. Let's get them. You can get yourself an extra knight, by the way, and at some point you're going to have to. And as the game goes on, don't be afraid to just go ahead and increase the level of a lot of your cities, especially the ones that are reasonably wealthy. Not necessarily because you need any extra slots yet, but just because, again, the extra trading carts can add up pretty nicely. Everyone trades more effectively. We like it. Gonna set up another small little city over here. Start mining up some of the gold, maybe some of the local iron, since we have so much coal sitting around and it's kind of cheap at the moment. Just getting set up for the next round of industries, since we're now going to start moving on to citizens. There we go. Now we have citizens. Okay, first thing we probably want, forge, which I will then place up here in Brookvale. And at this point, I have finished exploring the entirety of the map. Okay, so now I'll just place my knights on guard duty, looking around, seeing if there's any bandits somewhere before they get too strong. Now, at some point, one thing you'll have to do is start increasing the number of workers that can be in homes. That allows you to build a little bit more densely, you know? So, for example, over here, I'm still not producing anywhere near enough bread. And I can upgrade this city and get myself a couple more slots, which is great. But if I have to spend one slot on a worker and then one slot on a mill, well, then I can't afford to get myself another bakery now, can I? But I already have so many workers over here, if I can just stack up a little bit more population in here, won't be an issue. Now, at this point, how are we looking with most of our economy? Pretty good. If we take a look at citizens, the only thing they're really missing is enough beer to go around, which I am producing. It's just slow. And some lamps, which, again, I am producing. I need furniture, and then the citizens are basically done, and we could move on. Now, at this point, there's not a whole lot more that I could do. I mean, we can certainly try to get the last tier of population, the aristocrats, who don't really do much of anything exactly, but we can get them just so we can start building some party pavilions and basically wasting resources to drive up market demand. It's a little silly when you think about it. Maybe not too far off of reality, I'm not sure, but that is kind of how that game ends up going. And then from there on out, it's just keep building up more efficiency and so on. The big issue is once you start running out of cities, your ability to kind of readjust your economy gets tougher and tougher. So at some point, you're going to have to start demolishing things and reorganizing, building your population more densely so you can get more production, blah, 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 blah. Very sensible stuff. It has been interesting watching some towns like rising and falling with income. Like all of a sudden, Frosthaven's not looking so good, which means that the prices that were driving its economy have apparently plummeted with probably things like pottery. and as a result, they're falling out of favor. Whereas Goldbrook, who has been struggling forever at this point, is now looking really good at making armor and making jewelry. You get the idea. Right now I'm going over here and starting to work on luxury tailors, and I've got some local production of some tailoring and stuff, but they'll have to buy the jewelry way out over here, which is very expensive, so it might be worth trying to get some investments in making gold a little bit more productive so the market prices go down so I can focus on something more valuable. You get the idea. And that's kind of what this game is. It's just one giant resource management game. Get all this going. Oh gosh, the freaking bandits. I'm telling you, the bandits add nothing to the game except just to be annoying at times. They really do. But there's not really much of a threat, shy of you like legitimately screwing up and one of your towns is so desperate for money you have to keep pumping funds into it until you effectively have nothing to do. I don't know if this is really a game that can be lost exactly. It's just not that style of a game. But it is fun, and it is charming, and the aesthetic is great. And it's really satisfying just seeing so many goods flowing back and forth between all of my cities. Makes me feel like I built something really accomplished here. A well-oiled machine of commerce. What I think people are going to find, though, is at some point, once you've played it once, the game can get a little bit on the repetitive side. I mean, it's always going to be the same, exact industries, the same progression. The map will look a little different, but, I mean, what's the real difference between playing these different maps here? It's going to end up being kind of the same experience no matter what. So really the main draw, I would say, is actually, believe it or not, going to be the campaign. The individual levels in this actually can be kind of fun. But the campaign only lasts for maybe 5 or 6 hours of gameplay, and then beyond that, you're kind of done. Also, the top tier stuff really only starts showing up in the last 2 levels. Almost everything else is just tier 1 and tier 2 goods. So you don't even really get to experience the full whammy of this game, not until the very, very end. And I think that's a little bit of a missed opportunity, because it ends up turning what should be a resource management game into a surprisingly kind of story-driven level game, and then you have like maybe 1 time with free play, maybe 2, and that's kind of it. And sure, there's maps on the Steam Workshop, but like, is that really going to add much more of a challenger experience to the game? No, probably not. So I think you really only get maybe a maximum of 10 to 12 hours of enjoyment with a game like this, and you should judge it accordingly as far as where you spend your dollars. This might be one of those games that I wouldn't necessarily pick up at full price on the store, but I would definitely do so at a discount, because for a couple of afternoons, it's a fun experience, and it really is a charming game. Thank you all for watching. Hope you enjoyed this video. If so, I would ask you to hit that like button, leave a comment, subscribe, hit that notify bell, and I will see you guys next time.